This is kind of a hot topic, isn't it?
It is, because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we have triggers. We have triggers in our marriage, and I think everybody does. How do you get through them? Because they can set off a really intense conversation.
Mm-hmm. And it's you and me, babe, whatever comes. Knowing bigger hands are holding ours, and the greatest days are ahead of us. Growing in love, learning to be a better us.
Hi there, welcome to A Better Us and welcome to our home. We're glad you're here.
Okay, so there are so many catchphrases going around right now, and one of the most common is to be triggered. To have something said that sets off a disproportionate reaction in a person.
Yeah.
And in marriage, that can mean trouble.
Because as we all know, emotional triggers are more than just a catchphrase. They are actually an opportunity to see what we're not looking at. Mm-hmm. They expose the unhealed parts of us.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do if your spouse says something that triggers you? Coming up, marriage expert Ted Lowe will give us some practical advice that every one of us can use.
Right. Also, Drs. Les and Leslie Parrott will give us some insight on how we can be less sensitive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And of course, our kitchen couples will have a lot to say about all of that. It's going to be good, so stay with us.
Hey, so Ted, one of the things that we hear a lot on Loveology is, what do I do when my spouse kind of triggers me? You know, I kind of get set off sometimes. There's certain things they know how to push my buttons. And of course, nobody knows how to do that better than your own spouse because they are with you so often. What can you do when you feel like you're getting triggered by your spouse?
Yeah, I think for a lot of times people, we've all been in this spot where we say, I wish I hadn't said that. I can't believe I said that again. I promised I'd never say that again. And we have this reaction that we're not pleased with and obviously completely ineffective. And not only was it ineffective, it was hurtful. And so one of the things that, Les, you're a fellow geek, but we get geeked out with neuroscience, right? But one of the things that it's teaching us relationally is when our spouse triggers us, it triggers a part of the brain called the amygdala, and it's the same part of the brain that if we were to put our hand on a stove, that would make us jerk it back immediately, which we are so glad that our brain has that the thought is not, oh, this is really hurting, I should remove it, that we've got that. When our spouse triggers us, it's that same part of the brain. And the problem with that is our frontal lobe, which is where all our logic is, all our long-term reasoning, just goes out to lunch for 8 seconds. And so we react in this way without thinking about what we want for our relationship long-term, and we can hurt them. And so I think people like me have made marriage way too complicated. So people say, what do I do when my spouse triggers me? I say, don't talk. Not with your face, not with your body, not with your word parts, none of that. That you pause and you give it a little time, let your frontal lobe come back online a little bit, breathe and respond. And I think we'll end up with better responses when we pause those.
Okay, so Ted, that sounds incredibly simple, and that's incredibly difficult to do. Now, only a neuropsychologist has something like this on their desk. I didn't know you were going to talk about the amygdala. I happen to have a brain that sits on my desk because I refer to it so often. But that amygdala deep down in your brain does impact what you're talking about, the frontal cortex, where we make our decisions, and we become really irrational at that point. Once it's been triggered, you can't just stop talking. You're in high gear. It's fight, flight, and flee. It's everything. Boosh, right? So what do you mean by just stop talking? How in the world can you do that?
Well, I think we're at these moments, and I've learned this trick the best with raising 3 teenagers. I get practice for this a lot, and I can be way reactionary with them, way reactionary. And I have learned to pause myself when I have these conversations. When I get lit up, literally, I mean, people say bite your tongue. I bite my tongue, or I bite my lip. So it is possible in those moments, even when you're triggered, to pause and just to slow things down. And we're always going to win when we slow things down.
It's a conscious effort, isn't it? It's not something that's like in the moment, oh yeah, I need to do that thing.
Right.
You have to kind of, I often use the analogy of an airline pilot. Remember when Sully Sullenberger landed and was a hero because of what he did. And they said, how did you make those decisions so quickly? He said, I didn't make the decisions in that moment. I made those decisions years ago that if I ever got into this situation, I knew what I would do. And we kind of have to approach this the same way, don't you think?
100%. I think, and the more we practice it, the better we get. I think research shows too is, the 8 seconds even becomes shorter. That we've got this pause to be able to do this. We say a lot, people that have bad marriages typically don't have bad hearts, they have bad habits. And so how can we get into a better habit and stop the bad habit of just reacting and get into a better habit of pausing?
That's so good. And you're right, that 8 seconds can shrink. In fact, we know from research it can go to 3 seconds. You can actually flip it in a 3 second. Once you kind of train your brain, you should get a new habit, not a new heart, just a new habit, because your heart is with that person. Ted, so helpful. Thanks so much.
Well, welcome to our kitchen, right here in our home, hun, with our
That's
kitchen
right.
couples. We've got Mike and Diane and Dan and Danielle.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a hot topic, isn't it?
It is,
Triggers.
because, I don't know about you guys, but we have triggers. We have triggers in our marriage, and I think everybody does. And the point is, how do you get through them? Because they can set off a really intense conversation, can't they? What do you think?
I don't think it's just you and us that have triggers. I feel like the whole world has triggers. Everybody's being triggered. It's like this buzz term, this word that, I'm so triggered. And I just think ultimately when we say we're triggered, it actually means we have something unhealed in us that needs tending to. And so we have to, and I'm like, what healthy habits do we put in place? First of all, asking ourselves what does need to be healed. And then as they were talking about, it's not in the moment, it's putting a plan in place. And I actually remember talking another season about fighting rules. Like, what are our boundaries when we do get heated, when there is that emotional moment and our brain is, going crazy and overriding our common sense. We have to kind of put those things in place. And I love that he said, made me feel so good, that people that have bad marriages don't have bad hearts, they have bad habits. And the good news is we can train ourselves to have better habits. And that's why God says in his word, to not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. We train ourselves. Yeah.
It's kind of like the military or saying, or someone who's been in law enforcement or whatever, they would say, remember your training, right? Because when that crisis moment happens, it's not, you don't have time to analyze what you're going to do. It's supposed to be like reflex. Right. And that's really what we're doing right now. Is we're like, this is a training moment to realize, okay, what do I need to do when I feel? Because when that trigger happens, you're not thinking. Like they're saying, the amygdala kicks in, you're not dealing with your frontal lobe, you're not thinking logically, you're in the fight or flight mode, and in that moment you gotta remember your training. And I know, and I've heard about this in terms of conflict before, that when you're in a conflict and if it gets really heated and emotional, the emotions are running high, it's the exact same thing. You're not thinking logically, you're in the amygdala, you're in the different part of your brain, and you're not thinking logically, and so you need to like cool it off to bring it down. Because he mentioned the number 8 seconds several times. It's like, okay, getting that training in place, that thought process to bite your tongue for 8 seconds.
It actually can feel like a long time.
Right, because think about that. In 8 seconds, you can do a lot of damage.
To your tongue, bro.
Yes, biting it. Depends how hard you bite it. Within
Better
reason.
than the damage done to each other.
But you can do a lot of damage in your marriage, right? James says that the tongue is a fire. So you can burn your house down, you can burn your marriage down in that 8 seconds. But also Proverbs 25:11 says a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. So that 8 seconds where we allow, to switch from amygdala to something a little bit more constructive, we have the opportunity to switch from burning our house down to apples of gold in a setting of silver. So, 8 seconds, we can change everything with that 8 seconds. But we have to decide ahead of time.
James 1:19 and 20, God tells us quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Yes, the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And that's what we have to keep telling ourselves, slow to speak. Because sometimes we're just so quick to blurt it out, and it's not the right or the nicest thing to do, right? It isn't righteous. So we have to remember God tells us to be slow to speak, slow to speak, slow to speak, slow to speak.
8 seconds.
Slow to anger, slow to anger. Don't get so angry so quickly. Just don't go there. Don't allow yourself to go there.
It deserves repeating. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Oh my goodness! Yes. So you have such a passion for getting it right and doing things right, and I think that passion can turn into something else, something different sometimes, and it's really hard to sort of communicate, how important it is, right? What is the cost, right? When you look at what is the cost of this 8 seconds, right?
Yes.
And that 8 seconds can be really, really expensive, and so we just want to implore people just to to understand that I love this woman. Yes. Yeah, and there's nothing I would desire to do, right? To put her in a bad way. Even if something has just happened, right? Because stuff happens in life. That's life, right? And so if we can just really kind of work on this idea of being intentional about what we say and make sure that our words are healing words, right?
Even in the moment when we're triggered, because especially in that moment. I mean, we've been married 40 years. Okay, we just had our 40th wedding anniversary last summer, and even then, we still have triggers. We still have those things that set you off.
By the way, the metaphor kind of the trigger, what comes to my mind is a gun, right?
Oh, yeah.
You pull a gun, and then as soon as that spark, and the Bible talks about our tongues are like a spark of fire that can cause a lot of damage, but that trigger, the spark on the gunpowder, all of a sudden can blow up and do a lot of damage. But we need to resist that, as we say, as they were saying on that teaching segment.
Absolutely, and it doesn't matter. Like I was
But it still happens.
It still happens.
Yeah.
In fact, as we were preparing for this a couple of weeks ago, we had a trigger moment, where we had been watching a video together, and I was putting laundry away while watching the video with him. I was in and out of the room. He was in the room watching it. And while I was putting some laundry away in the towels, I heard all of a sudden this loud video start. Like that wasn't what we were watching. And I come into the other room, I say, what are you doing? What's going on? And in that moment, I hit a trigger. I didn't know it, but I did.
Well, I reacted right away, and I was really upset. And I'm trying to figure out why.
So, but you had started a video on your phone.
Right,
Because someone had
right.
sent him a video, say, check this out, because I'm not sure if it's legitimate or good. And so he thought, okay, I've got to check. So he started the video while we were watching this, and so it was really loud.
So I kind of lashed out back at her in defensiveness, and I thought, I tried to kind of analyze why did I do that? And then after, settled down, I think it was because what triggered me was feeling disrespected. Like she was talking down to me like a little kid.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I lashed back, and before the frontal lobe came into play.
Those 8 seconds didn't happen.
And it was like I was interpreting Anne's motives for what I thought she meant by that tone or whatever. But it was my interpretation of it,
as being
which
him.
wasn't the best interpretation, because she wasn't thinking that way.
No, because I was just listening to the video, and then all of a sudden I heard this loud music, and I said, what are you doing?
But it turned into probably a 15 or 20-minute conversation.
And we really
were
unpacked
dissecting it.
triggers.
What happened?
Okay, something happened here that we need to understand.
Yeah.
And so when those triggers happen, it can be a good thing, because it can help you then understand each other on a deeper level. It's like, okay, like it was an eye-opener for Ron to say, okay, I didn't realize I could be easily triggered like that. And for me to say, okay, you know what, even when I'm a little frustrated, watch my tone.
Yeah,
So,
everything leads back to that tone, attitude, and heart. heart and wanting to be heard.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I saw a video recently. A girl was talking about this idea, and her suggestion was that we pause and ask each other, what did you hear me say? So her example was just she was doing one of those things where she acts out both parts, right? And so she's interacting with the other character of her husband. Did you take out the garbage? And he lashes out because he's assuming, he's reading into it. Oh, yes, no, I haven't taken out the garbage. You're on me about the garbage or whatever. And she's like, wait a second, what did you hear me say? Well, I thought you're, talking down to me because I didn't take out the garbage. She's like, no, I wanted to put the baby's diaper in the garbage, and I wanted to know if this was one who'd been taken out recently or if I should put it outside. So it had nothing to do with that, right? But we're misinterpreting in that moment, and we're triggered by what we read into it. That's not even said.
That could be unhealed from the past too, and other
The unhealed thing.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a really cool clarification, to actually pause in a conversation. It's like, wait a second, what did you hear me say? Like, what did you think I meant by that? Because
That is so good.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
To use misunderstanding in our marriages. If he can get us anyway, even if it's not an actual conflict, he'll still use a way that we think is conflict when it isn't.
That's true.
Exactly. So the bottom line is just like you said, approach each other with good hearts, with open hearts, and not with intention of attack or defense, being defensive, but just open and say, okay, we need to talk about this because something's going on here, and both be open and honest and healing.
That's good.
That's it.
And with
Good
God's
stuff.
help, we have Him in our life, and His Holy Spirit can also can counteract some of those triggers sometimes, right? Right in the moment, and is that check in our spirit to say, okay, no, I'm not going to go there. Use that 8 seconds that they talked about, maybe by setting up that prayer and say, God, what should I do here? But yeah, excellent.
It's been good. It's been good.
Yeah.
Well, don't you go anywhere because there is more Better Us to come.
I want to understand my spouse. Like, if they're a little bit tougher, I'm going to have to really work at not reacting defensively whenever they're just maybe using humor.
Hi, Ron and Ann here, and thank you for your interest in A Better Us.
Today, more than ever, we all agree there's a vital need to protect and strengthen marriages and families.
That's our goal through our A Better Us media ministry, live events, quality resources, and personal marriage coaching.
We want to inspire and equip couples everywhere toward a healthy, Christ-centered marriage.
A Better Us is a production of a nonprofit charity that we lead, and as we all know, it takes a team to get the job done.
And we need you to be a part of our team in order to sustain and grow this ministry.
The best way you can help us is by joining our monthly partnership program.
$35 a month will make a big difference in providing hope for many marriages. Simply visit abetterus.tv today and click donate.
And when you sign up monthly, we'll send you 2 of our A Better Us coffee mugs to say thanks.
Most of all, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that your investment is strengthening marriages and families around the world.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm doing something right. I honestly believe it was love at first sight because there was something about her that I had never seen in anyone before, and I hadn't even met her. So
I'd like to know what that is too. What is it?
So
we went to the same high school, and I knew who you were.
She was too cool to know who I was, so we didn't really know each other. We had some mutual friends, but then we actually both ended up going to the same Bible college a couple years later and kind of re-met through some other mutual friends at Bible college, and then, things just kind of progressed from there.
Here we are.
I had just got saved, and my sister invited me out to church. And I'll never forget that day because me and my other sister who got saved came into the church building, and my oldest sister was with a group of boys. And all of a sudden, those group of boys turned around and they all started coming towards me and my other sister. And they were all saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, I don't remember any of their names. But then the boys separated, and there was like this aisle, and this young man came down the aisle, and he came to me and he reached out his hand and he said, hi, I'm Robert Alexander Meikle. It's a pleasure to meet you. And I will never forget that day because we were fairly young, and I'm like, who talks like that at that age, number one? But it was like the angels were singing and there was a spotlight on him. And that night I went home and thought about him the whole night, just thinking, who is Robert Alexander Meikle?
Well, it was this time of the year. We were at a youth event, and they had this game where you go off into the corn patch, which sounds kind of corny, but actually, and I wasn't stalking her, but we ended up holding hands, and I still kind of remember that feeling of, holding somebody's hand for the first time. And I gave her a ride home in my red convertible, and that did it, right? So, yeah.
We met in church. I was in a service and Alvin was singing there. He's been a singer traveling around the world for years, and I had never heard of him. And so I met him after the service, and he was interested in the ministry I was involved in. And so he wanted my card, and I gave him my card. And when I got home, there was a message in my inbox. So I responded, and then he wrote back, and I responded, and he wrote back. And I've been responding ever since, right?
Pretty much.
Am I responsive?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Very responsive.
Yeah, I try.
From my perspective, it was just something that stood out about Tanya. And so when I introduced myself to her, you might be wondering why I introduced myself the way I did to her. I said, I've got to make a distinction. And I did want her to remember me. And I did want something to actually start. So we met in church, and yeah, it was love at first sight. No doubt about it. There was something very special about her, and literally our relationship from that day forward just started building from a friendship to a companionship to eventually being married.
Just being asked if he could take me home just kind of was, wow. I had never had that before. And then I waited and he asked me out on a date, and we went to a Christian concert where there was like quartets playing. So that was kind of our dating years back in the day when quartet music was popular.
So we just connected, and we probably wrote and spoke for about a year before we actually met again.
Yeah.
So I lived in the States, you lived in Canada. I wasn't looking to get married again, and it was about a year. And then finally, a year later is when we actually met. Who said I love you first?
Do you remember? I did. 100%.
I think that checks out.
That's a great question.
I think I did.
I think you did.
Yes, I did.
I
Yes.
think you did. It was him.
I think you did. And I said, thank you. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Probably said it in a card or a letter, because we did write while we were dating. So
Yeah.
don't remember exactly who said it first.
Hey friends, Ron and Ann Maines here, and we are so glad you're with us here on our A Better Us YouTube channel.
And we pray God's blessing on your marriage as you take this in.
And be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already.
And enjoy this video.
You know, sensitivity is kind of a part of some personalities. Some of us are just more sensitive than others.
Right.
And then, of course, we all have this layer of sensitivity if a button is pressed that we weren't expecting.
We have triggers, we all have our own defensiveness to deal with, and then some of us are just more tender where others are just tough-skinned.
So what do you do?
Yeah, some of it's in our DNA and some of it's in our character, right? So I think we have to recognize what our personality is. If I'm sensitive, I'm probably going to treat someone else with great sensitivity. Right. But I want to understand my spouse. Like, if they're a little bit tougher, I'm going to have to really work at not reacting defensively whenever they're just maybe using humor.
And somebody might have like a fear of being losing someone's approval. And so they read signs of disapproval where they don't exist.
Where they weren't intended.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of it happens when we just, even if something happens that we feel a tweak and we're a sensitive person, instead of reacting, we hold it in abeyance and sort of explore maybe what they meant. Like, you know, and use a little humor, use some humility, like put a little feeler out there. Hey, did you know that kind of hurt my feelings? And give them a chance to come back and maybe be a little softer.
Yeah, so do a little reflection and then tenderly kind of share that with your spouse. Just
Right.
kind of, hey, what was going on here? And then be ready to hear kind of what they have to say about that.
It is fair to say there are a couple things that I feel so defensive about. They're sort of off the table when it comes to don't make fun of these or point them out or bring them up. And if you get those clear ahead of time, it can really kind of protect both of you.
It might be your mother-in-law, it might be how you handle finances, whatever those things are, those are hitting below the belt and that's illegal.
Yeah,
We don't
off
do
the
that.
table.
Right.
Yeah.
Stay connected with us online. Visit abetterus.tv to watch full episodes, find marriage resources, and subscribe free to your weekly Marriage Moment emails. Browse our YouTube channel with over 500 videos on various marriage topics and share them with family and friends. And of course, hit that subscribe button. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram for daily messages that inspire a healthy, lifelong relationship. So be sure to connect online in your journey toward a better us.
Today's show has covered some pretty heartfelt stuff, dealing with our triggers in marriage and learning to be less sensitive in our day-to-day lives.
Right. Both of these topics deal with the heart of our communication, being vulnerable with each other and having a safe place to expose our unhealed hurts.
And it's so important to do that because when a wound remains open, no matter how old it is, it's easy for infection to set in, which can then poison your relationship with those closest to you.
Healing happens not when we avoid our triggers, but when you're triggered and you're able to grow through it and put a stop to the unhealthy patterns.
But let's face it, most of the time we can't do that on our own. We need to invite God's Spirit, the one who knows us better than we know ourselves, to, as King David said it in the Psalms, search me, O God, and know my heart, know my thoughts. That's when healing begins. It's as we open up the deepest part of us to Him that He then brings healing and wholeness to us.
Right. And there are times that God will use someone else, a counselor perhaps, a person led by God's Spirit, who can give you the tools to remove those embedded triggers that you've lived with for so long. The bottom line is that however God chooses to bring healing to your heart, the important thing is that you take that first step to open up your heart to Him.
The phone number that you see on the screen is our prayer line. It's a free call and it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It will connect you with a caring person who would love to introduce you to the one who knows you best and longs for you to be whole. Why not give God a chance?
And we also have resources for you on our website that you might find helpful. Well, thank you for stopping by, and remember, don't give up, because with God, there is always hope to become a better us. Hey friends, we really hope you're enjoying the marriage conversations here on our A Better Us YouTube channel.
We have hundreds of more helpful marriage videos designed to give you hope and tools to make your marriage even better.
Right. And you can see just a few options we think you might like here and here. So keep exploring.
Oh, and make sure you subscribe by clicking here so you don't miss out on all the great marriage help we have coming your way all the time.